How's it going, everybody? Thanks for tuning in. We're part of the Unicorn Network, LLC, a free millennial entrepreneur group. We're part of the Corrado Initiative, and we've been grouped together because we're all in the business of being prepared. So real quick, we'll introduce ourselves. Scott, if you want to go first.
My name is Scott Migden, and I'm a criminal defense attorney at the law offices of Alan J. Schwartz, PC.
Hi, I'm Tim McGrath. I'm with the Marion Freese Insurance Agency, West Sayville, New York, and I'm a licensed property casualty broker.
My name is Matt Wasp. I'm a financial service professional. So today we're going to talk about a hypothetical situation that happens more frequently than you think. You know, we're all in the business of being prepared, so we're going to talk about how to be prepared for this hypothetical scenario. Tim, why don't you tell them what we're talking about?
Yeah, so the scenario we have today involves three drivers, driver Alex, driver Brian, and driver Charlie. Driver Alex is texting on the road on a busy highway here on Long Island. Driver Brian gets pissed off, for lack of a better term, that Alex is texting while driving. When they get to a red light, words are exchanged, causing some road rage between the two of them. Next thing they know, they're speeding, trying to cut each other off on the road. Ultimately, this leads to an accident where a third party, driver C, Charles, is hit, and both Alex, who hit Charlie, and Charlie pass away. Now, this is a extreme example, but it's a scenario that could happen and something we thought would be interesting to play off of and talk about what could actually happen. So first off, Scott, just from a legal standpoint, what are your thoughts on this situation?
Well, we're taking it step by step. Texting while driving, that's a 5-point moving violation in the state of New York. The speeding aspect, if it's just a normal speed, let's say they're going 10, 20, 30 miles per hour over the speed limit, you could be looking at 4 or 6 points depending on how fast they were going. So that's texting and driving, speeding combined. Let's say it's 5 points and 6 points. That's 11 points. So if this accident never happened and this was police observed, one of the motorists who has the 11 points could be at risk of losing their driving privileges. Because in the state of New York at 11 points, it's a possibility. Another possibility that they can lose their driving privileges is if the officer sees them speeding at a high rate of speed, such as, let's say, 50 miles per hour over the speed limit. Now, we're talking about road rage. 50 miles per hour is pretty high over the speed limit, and not only could they be looking at having their license suspended for going at such a high rate of speed, but they could also be looking at misdemeanor and possibly felony charges. There could be reckless driving, reckless endangerment, and in the scenario where unfortunately Charlie does pass away, both drivers, regardless of who hit the car, could be looking at serious charges such as manslaughter. And it's very unfortunate, but there's a lot of things to consider when you're looking at driving. There's traffic, vehicle and traffic law, and there's the criminal aspects with the New York State penal law. So there's a lot to think about, a lot to be prepared for, and a lot of ways a simple driving incident can turn into a huge headache and tragedy.
Yeah, and Scott, you bring up a really good point, and it's a scary scenario, quite honestly. And just simply looking from the insurance perspective, things like road rage and texting with driving, they could be exclusions on your policy. So with that said, if you're out of luck because of your insurance coverage, the next thing that's going to happen is a party could go after your assets for financial reimbursement. And that's something I think you, Matt, could talk about.
Yeah, so, it's a heartbreaking situation. We have, regardless of what happened, 2 people have passed away because of this. So where I come in and we want to make sure you guys, the viewers, are prepared is with something like life insurance. This could be a huge relief for the families. So in this hypothetical, Charlie, our driver, who was unfortunately wrong time, wrong place, has passed away. Charlie had a wife at home and 2 kids. Great life, great family, just bought a new house. He's the main breadwinner in the family. So when he passes away, that family has to now find a way to get back that income that he was making, find a way to pay for that house. Now, it may take some time. They're grieving. It's heartbreaking, like I said. So, bills slip by, things happen, and they're unable to, stay in the house. But thankfully, through life insurance and through a death benefit, Charlie was prepared. He made sure his loved ones were taken care of, and definitely prepared for this unfortunate but pretty frequent situation. So through the death benefit of life insurance, they're able to stay in the house. The kids are able to maintain their friend groups, their community at school, and heartbreaking as it is, they're able to move on and still maintain the normalcy of the life that they had. Looking at Alex, our original driver, he was a bit selfish, wasn't really prepared for the situation. He also had a family at home. He had a wife and a daughter. Now, heartbreaking there, they don't have the benefit of life insurance and that protection. Their family's gonna have to now move because they can't afford the house they just got. His daughter, 7 years old, playing soccer. She's not gonna be able to stay with that team. She's gonna have to be in a new school district. It's a little more affordable for their family now. And for their daughter, they're gonna face some things for childcare. Mom's gonna have to go to work to replace that income, and it's heartbreaking, and we don't like to see it. And that's really why we're here today, right, guys? We want to educate you guys, the viewer, to make sure that you're prepared for any situation.
Absolutely. And I think that there's one driver in this situation, Brian, who got away unscathed. And
from an insurance aspect, certainly not a criminal or traffic.
so that brings my next point. Scott, if he goes away unscathed physically, what's going to happen next for this guy?
Well, in the event that there was no death, like I said, he's at risk of losing his driving privileges. In the event that there was a death where one of the two of them had crashed into Charlie, then he's looking at, criminal liability for his involvement in creating this dangerous situation. Neither of these two guys should have been violating the vehicle and traffic law, and neither of the two of them should have engaged in road rage to such an extent that they would put themselves in this scenario. But I do want to go back to you, Tim. Before you mention exclusion, what do you mean by exclusion? Exclusion from what?
So if we're talking about an exclusion, that would be an exclusion possibly from your insurance policy. Now, every insurance policy is different. And in this case, we're talking about your personal auto policy. So things like texting and driving or a road rage incident, you could totally find in the exclusion section that there's no coverage for this. But again, every policy is tailored differently. But that also brings up a different perspective of the insurance. Now, say Charlie he worked for a business owner and he was a driver for the business. There could be additional protection for Charlie's family if the employer had set up proper insurances such as your general liability insurances, your workers' compensation, and even disability insurances. And that's just something I wanted to throw in here real quick.
Yeah, that brings it to a great point. Business owners now are also seeing the need for, kind of life insurance products. So being a business owner and having that benefit for your employees is huge because sometimes it is pricey and sometimes people forget about it. It goes by the wayside. You don't want to think about someone passing away too soon prematurely, but knowing that your employer has gone through the proper channels and has gotten you some type of coverage that you were talking about, is great on their end. So regardless of this hypothetical, there's still the texting and driving, which isn't great. So Scott, say instead of, Brian realizing that and this whole scenario taking place, he turned to his right and there's a state trooper next to him. How's that affecting his driving?
If a state trooper observes a motorist texting while driving, that's 5 points. Now, let's just say that 2 weeks ago, that same individual got a 6-point speeding ticket. Now they have a possible 5-point texting while driving ticket. That totals 11 points. Now, in the state of New York, if you have 11 points on your driver's license, you could be at risk of losing your driving privileges. You could be at risk of getting fines, driver's assessment fees, and other possible consequences. And that also all depends on your driving history. So now we have 2 tickets within a few weeks. If you take a defensive driving point reduction course, every 18 months, you can get 4 points taken off your license. What that means is, let's say you have those 2 convictions now for 11 points. If you have the defensive driving point reduction course, you're down to 7, which means you could still possibly get a driver's assessment fee, but you're much less likely to lose any driving privileges. But that's 18 months for the purpose of the Department of Motor Vehicles. Tim, you want to shed some light on how that applies to insurance, a defensive driving point reduction course?
Yes, thanks, Scott. So if we look on the bright side for a second, you could be a good driver, you could be a bad driver, but taking something like a defensive driving or accident prevention course, can lead to credits on your insurance policy. So regardless of this scenario in general, it's something that I recommend because it could help you save money immediately on your car insurance.
It's great to know. Great to know.
And how long does the course apply for insurance purposes?
I believe it's up to 3 years.
Okay. And now you talk about some more positive things, and we're talking a lot about cars. So what I'm really wondering is, Matt, how do you help us get that dream car?
So, I appreciate you bringing that up. There are a few ways, no
Work
matter
for
what
it.
you're saving for, working for it. No matter what you guys are saving for or planning for in life, it's important to sit down, with a financial professional. Whether it's saving for that Ferrari, like I know Scott dreams of, whether it's saving for a beautiful house, whether it's planning, for that retirement. You want to sit down with someone like myself that can help you get from A to B and plan for all the mishaps and changes, that happen in between. Because let's face it, nothing goes as planned. You always want to make sure you sit down with someone that can take you down the road, whether it's a straight line or a bendy one.
And that's why we're in the business of being prepared.
All right, thanks guys. Again, my name's Tim McGrath. This is Scott Migden and Matt Wasp. We're all in the business of being prepared, and we'd like to thank the Unicorn Network for setting up this Corrado initiative. Last thing, we don't have a name for our group, so
Unfortunately not.
if anybody out there has any recommendations for our group name, please feel free to leave them in the comments. In fact, we encourage it.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you
guys.
guys.